On your knees, hands behind your head. Officer, I am a surgeon. Do it. Did I say talk? Get down. Now, the black man in surgical scrubs lowered himself to the cold asphalt. Gravel bit into his kneecaps, his hands locked behind his skull. Chief Raymond Whitaker leaned in close. Look at you, playing dress-up in scrubs. He flicked the hospital lanyard hanging from the man's neck. He turned to his officer and grinned. Book him. I have been cleaning trash off these streets for years. One more will not hurt. The man on his knees said nothing, just breathed, slow, steady. But what Chief Whitaker did not know, what no one on that street knew yet, was going to destroy his entire career. Yeah, he really thought he was in control. Let us see what happens next. Earlier that day, the world looked completely different for Dr. Calvin Brooks. The fluorescent lights of the operating room buzzed faintly overhead. Dr. Calvin Brooks stood at the surgical table, gloved hands steady, eyes locked on the exposed chest cavity in front of him. A young patient, car wreck on the interstate, shattered ribs, a punctured lung filling with blood. The monitors beeped in a rhythm only surgeons understand. Fast, too fast. Suction, Dr. Calvin Brooks said, calm, like he was ordering coffee. The nurse cleared the blood. Dr. Calvin Brooks's fingers moved with the kind of precision that takes years to build. Stitch by stitch, vessel by vessel. The beeping slowed. The lung inflated. The patient's chest rose on its own. He is stable, Dr. Calvin Brooks said, pulling off his gloves. Let us close him up. That was the second life he saved that day. The first was an elderly man whose aorta ruptured that morning. Most surgeons would not even attempt that procedure. Dr. Calvin Brooks did it before breakfast. This is who Dr. Calvin Brooks is. Chief of Surgery at Riverside Memorial Hospital. Years of experience. A reputation so spotless that Victor Langston III, the hospital's billionaire board chairman, personally flew to Chicago some time ago just to recruit him. But outside those hospital walls, none of that seems to matter. Willow Creek is the kind of place that looks perfect from the road. Oak-lined streets, freshly painted fences, lawns trimmed so clean they look fake. Median household income sits high. The kind of town where people wave at each other from their porches and call it community. But look a little closer. The neighborhood watch signs are on every corner, not because of crime, because of who might wander in. The population is overwhelmingly white. The remaining few know exactly what that feels like. Dr. Calvin Brooks is part of that few. In his time living here, he has been followed through the hardware store. A cashier once asked to see a second form of ID when he paid with a credit card. His neighbor across the street has never once said hello. He does not talk about it much, does not post about it, does not complain. He just goes to work, saves lives, and drives home. And that drive home is where everything falls apart. It was evening, late October. The sky had turned that deep amber color right before it goes dark. Leaves scattered across Oak Ridge Road like confetti after a parade nobody attended. Dr. Calvin Brooks pulled out of the hospital parking lot in his dark blue Chevy Tahoe. Not flashy, not new. He could afford any car on the lot, but he chose this one because it does not draw attention. A deliberate choice. A survival strategy he learned from his father years ago. Inside the car, a classical station played low on the radio. A medical journal sat on the passenger seat. His hospital lanyard swung gently from the rearview mirror. On the dashboard, his phone buzzed with a text from his teenage daughter. "Dad, do not forget the food, please." He smiled, tapped the voice reply. "On my way, sweetheart, 20 minutes. The speed limit on Oak Ridge Road is 35. Dr. Calvin Brooks was doing 33. He always drives under the limit in Willow Creek. Another thing his father taught him: never give them a reason, not even a small one. But here is what Dr. Calvin Brooks did not know. Chief Raymond Whitaker had been running the Willow Creek Police Department for years. He answered to no one. The town council rubber-stamped his budget every year without reading it. He played golf with the mayor on Saturdays. He drank bourbon with the county judge on Sundays. His word was law. Literally. In recent years, multiple excessive force complaints had been filed against his department. Every single one involved a person of color. Every single one was dismissed internally by Whitaker himself. And that evening, Whitaker was parked in his cruiser on the shoulder of Oak Ridge Road, engine idling, window down. He watched the dark blue Tahoe approach through the amber light. He saw the driver. He picked up his radio. "Dawson, I got one. Oak Ridge, heading south. Run the plates if you want, but I already know. Pull him over." The blue lights flashed on behind Dr. Calvin Brooks's car like a verdict that had already been decided. Dr. Calvin Brooks saw the lights in his rearview mirror and felt his stomach tighten. Not because he had done anything wrong, because he already knew how this would go. He pulled over immediately, turned off the engine, turned off the radio, placed both hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, fingers spread wide so they could be seen clearly. This was not his first time. His father's voice echoed somewhere in the back of his skull, the same words he had heard since he was a teenager. Both hands are visible. No sudden moves. Yes, sir. No, sir. Stay alive first. Be angry later. Gravel crunched behind him. Footsteps, slow and deliberate. A flashlight beam hit his side mirror and bounced into his eyes. Officer Ryan Fletcher appeared at the window, young, jaw clenched, one hand resting on his holster, like he was expecting a war. "License and registration." "Of course, officer." Dr. Calvin Brooks kept his voice low, controlled. "My wallet is in my back left pocket. I am going to reach for it slowly. Did I ask for a speech? Just hand it over." Dr. Calvin Brooks reached slowly, every movement calculated. He pulled out his wallet and extended it through the window. Fletcher snatched it, flipped it open, glanced at the license, then looked back at Dr. Calvin Brooks, then at the car, then back at Dr. Calvin Brooks. "This is your vehicle?" "Yes, sir." "Are you sure about that?" "I am sure." Fletcher aimed the flashlight directly into Dr. Calvin Brooks's face, held it there. The light was blinding. Dr. Calvin Brooks did not flinch, did not blink, just sat there, hands still on the wheel. "Step out of the vehicle." "May I ask why I have been stopped?" "You may not." "Step out. Now." Dr. Calvin Brooks exhaled through his nose, unbuckled his seatbelt, opened the door slowly, stepped out onto the gravel shoulder with his hands slightly raised. The evening air was cool, the kind of October chill that bites through thin fabric. His surgical scrubs offered nothing against it. Goosebumps crawled up his forearms. Fletcher grabbed his shoulder and spun him toward the car, hands on the hood. Dr. Calvin Brooks placed his palms flat on the cold metal. The engine heat had already faded. The surface was almost icy. That was when the second cruiser pulled up. The headlights washed over the scene. A black man in scrubs, palms down on the hood of his own car. An officer standing behind him with a flashlight. From a distance, it looked exactly like what it was. Chief Raymond Whitaker stepped out of the cruiser. He did not rush. He adjusted his belt, straightened his collar, walked over like a man inspecting his property. He looked at Dr. Calvin Brooks the way you would look at a stain on a clean floor. "Well, what do we have here?" It was not a question. "Chief, I pulled him over on Oak Ridge heading south," Fletcher reported. "He is being cooperative, but something feels off. Something always feels off with these ones." Whitaker circled Dr. Calvin Brooks slowly. His boots ground the gravel. Each step deliberate. "Nice car for a guy in pajamas." "These are surgical scrubs, sir." Dr. Calvin Brooks's voice remained flat. "I am Dr. Calvin Brooks. I am chief of surgery at Riverside Memorial. My hospital ID is around my neck." Whitaker stopped, looked at the lanyard, read it, then laughed. "Chief of surgery." He said it the way you would say a child's imaginary job title, right? "And I am the Pope." He unclipped the lanyard from Dr. Calvin Brooks's neck and tossed it onto the roof of the car like it was garbage. You know what I think? I think you found these scrubs somewhere. Maybe a dumpster, maybe a laundromat. I think this car does not belong to you, and I think you have got about 10 seconds to give me a reason not to search every inch of it. You need my consent or a warrant to search my vehicle. Silence. Whitaker stepped closer, close enough that Dr. Calvin Brooks could feel the heat of his breath on the back of his neck. Son, I am the warrant. He snapped his fingers at Fletcher. Open it up. Fletcher moved to the passenger side, opened the door, started pulling things out. The medical journal, a stethoscope case, a bag of surgical instruments wrapped in sterile cloth, a protein bar, a water bottle. Fletcher held up the surgical instrument bag. Chief, what is this? Whitaker walked over, unzipped it, looked at the scalpels, forceps, hemostats, tools that Dr. Calvin Brooks uses to save lives every single day. Looks like burglary tools to me. Whitaker smiled. Bag it. Dr. Calvin Brooks closed his eyes. His fingers pressed harder against the hood. The cold metal numbed his palms. Those are surgical instruments. They are hospital property. There is an inventory sticker on the inside of the bag with my name on it. Whitaker did not check, did not even glance. You know what your problem is? Whitaker said, walking back to Dr. Calvin Brooks. You think talking like that makes you sound smart. It does not. It makes you sound guilty. A third cruiser arrived. Officer Tanya Moore. She parked behind Whitaker's vehicle and stepped out quietly. Her body cam was active. The small red light blinked steadily on her chest. She took in the scene. A man in scrubs, hands on the hood, two officers hovering, no visible threat. Her expression shifted into something uncomfortable, but she said nothing. She stood near her cruiser and watched. By now, the neighborhood had started to notice. A white couple appeared on their porch 2 houses down. The woman had a glass of wine. The man had his arms crossed. They watched like it was television. Across the street, a college-aged kid raised his phone and started recording. The phone's tiny lens captured everything: the flashing lights, the officers, the man in scrubs who had not raised his voice once. Dr. Calvin Brooks's phone buzzed in his pocket, then again, then a third time. Each vibration felt like a small heartbeat against his thigh. The hospital was calling. He could not reach it, could not move. Whitaker noticed the buzzing. Popular guy. Probably your dealer is wondering where you are. That is my hospital. Sure it is. Whitaker nodded at Fletcher. The younger officer pulled out handcuffs. Turn around. On what charge? Resisting a lawful order. Possession of suspicious instruments. Failure to comply. Pick whichever one makes you feel better. I have not resisted anything. I have been standing here with my hands on my own car. Whitaker tilted his head. See? That right there? That little attitude? That is resistance. Fletcher grabbed Dr. Calvin Brooks's wrist, twisted it behind his back. The second wrist followed. The handcuffs clicked shut with a sound that echoed down the quiet suburban street. Cold steel against warm skin. The surgical scrubs bunched at his wrists. The red and blue lights painted the oak trees in slow, repeating waves. Dr. Calvin Brooks's phone buzzed one more time in his pocket. He could not answer it. Nobody knew it yet. Not the officers, not the neighbors, not the kid with the camera. But that phone call was about to change everything. Because on the other end of that line, inside the emergency room at Riverside Memorial, someone was dying. And the only person who could save her was now sitting in the back of a police cruiser, hands cuffed behind his back, watching the oak trees blur through a cage of metal and glass. Whitaker tapped the roof of the cruiser twice, the way you would tap a horse. Let us go, Fletcher. Drop him at the station. I will finish with the vehicle. The cruiser pulled away. Dr. Calvin Brooks did not look back. He sat perfectly still, spine straight, eyes forward, breathing slow. The neighbors went back inside. The college kid stopped recording and posted the video with a single caption. They just arrested a doctor for nothing. Before long, that video would have thousands of views. Before long, it would have millions. But right now, in this moment, it was just a man in handcuffs and a street that had already forgotten him. The booking room at Willow Creek Police Station smelled like burnt coffee and old paper. Fluorescent tubes hummed overhead, casting the kind of pale green light that makes everyone look sick. Dr. Calvin Brooks stood in front of a counter while a processing officer took his belongings. One wallet, one phone, now showing missed calls, one set of car keys, one hospital lanyard that Whitaker had tossed back into the cruiser like trash. The processing officer, a heavy-set man, looked at the hospital ID, looked at Dr. Calvin Brooks, looked at the ID again. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, then closed it. Fingerprints next. Stand over there. Dr. Calvin Brooks walked to the ink station, pressed each finger onto the pad one at a time. The black ink stained the ridges of the same hands that had stitched a young patient's lung back together earlier that day. Then came the mugshot. Face forward, no expression. The camera flashed. A man in surgical scrubs, inmate number across his chest, eyes steady, jaw set. The photograph looked like a contradiction, a healer framed like a criminal. Whitaker walked in just as they finished. He had a fresh cup of coffee in one hand and Dr. Calvin Brooks' surgical instrument bag in the other. He dropped the bag on the counter like it was evidence from a crime scene. Log these. Suspicious tools found during a vehicle search. He looked at Dr. Calvin Brooks. You want to update your little story now? Maybe tell me where you really got this stuff. Those instruments are registered to Riverside Memorial Hospital. My name is engraved on 3 of them.
Whitaker picked up a scalpel, held it to the light, turned it slowly. Engraved? He smirked. Cute. You know what I think? I think you are a very creative thief. The scrubs, the fake ID, the little bag of toys, almost had me. He set the scalpel down and leaned on the counter. Almost. Dr. Calvin Brooks said nothing. His jaw tightened. A vein pulsed at his temple, but his hands stayed still at his sides. I would like to make my phone call, Dr. Calvin Brooks said. Phone call? Whitaker sipped his coffee. Yeah, that is going to have to wait. I have a legal right. You have the rights I give you in my station. Sit down. Fletcher led Dr. Calvin Brooks to a holding cell at the end of a narrow hallway. The cell was small, a metal bench bolted to the wall, a stainless steel toilet in the corner with no privacy screen. The walls were scratched with old graffiti. Names, dates, desperate little carvings from people who had sat here before. The metal door slammed shut. The lock engaged with a deep, heavy click. Dr. Calvin Brooks sat on the bench. The metal was cold through the thin fabric of his scrubs. He placed his hands on his knees, squeezed once, released, squeezed again. He stared at the wall across from him and breathed. Some time passed. Then Whitaker appeared at the bars. He leaned against them casually, coffee still in hand, like a man visiting an exhibit at a zoo. Are you comfortable there, doctor? He said the word doctor the way you would say clown, stretching it, mocking it. Dr. Calvin Brooks did not look up. See, here is what I do not understand. Whitaker took a slow sip. People like you come into towns like this and think what? That you belong? That we are just going to roll out the red carpet? Dr. Calvin Brooks's eyes stayed on the wall.
I have kept this town clean for years. Not a single break-in, not a single robbery. You know why? Because I know who belongs here and who does not. I can smell it. He tapped the bars with his coffee cup. The metallic ring echoed down the hallway. And you do not belong here. You never did. So, wherever you actually came from, Chicago, Detroit, wherever, I suggest you start thinking about going back. Dr. Calvin Brooks looked up slowly. His eyes met Whitaker's. There was no anger in them, no fear, just something still, something patient. The kind of calm that comes from surviving this exact moment many times before. Are you finished? Dr. Calvin Brooks asked. Whitaker grinned. Oh, I am just getting started. He pushed off the bars and walked away. His boots echoed down the hall until a door opened and closed somewhere out of sight. What Whitaker did not see, what he was too arrogant to notice, was the small security camera mounted in the upper corner of the hallway. Its red light blinked softly in the dim light. It had recorded every word, every single one. Meanwhile, miles away, Riverside Memorial Hospital was in chaos. Dr. Calvin Brooks's phone had been taken at booking. The ER had called it many times. No answer. The chief of surgery had vanished. Dr. Amanda West, the attending ER physician, stood at the nurse's station with the phone pressed to her ear. Her other hand gripped the edge of the counter. "What do you mean he is in custody? For what?" The voice on the other end, the Willow Creek PD desk officer, was vague. "We have Dr. Calvin Brooks in holding. That is all I can tell you." Dr. West hung up and immediately paged hospital administration. Within minutes, the call reached Victor Langston III at his home across town. Langston was in his study, reading glasses on, a glass of scotch untouched on the desk. When his assistant relayed the message, he did not raise his voice, did not slam anything. He simply took off his glasses, set them on the desk, and said, "Get my car." But before Langston could leave his driveway, the ER doors at Riverside burst open. Paramedics rushed in a stretcher. A woman in her early 50s, face pale, lips turning blue, chest barely rising. The cardiac monitor screamed a jagged, erratic rhythm. Female, collapsed at a restaurant. Acute aortic dissection, blood pressure crashing. She is coding. Dr. West ran beside the stretcher. She looked at the patient's face, then at the ID bracelet the paramedics had tagged. Margaret Whitaker. The name hit the room like a brick through glass. Dr. West stabilized her. Epinephrine, chest compressions. They pulled her back once, then twice. The rhythm returned, weak, stuttering, but present. But stabilization was temporary. Margaret needed emergency surgery, a torn aortic valve, the kind of repair that requires a very specific surgeon, someone trained in emergency cardiothoracic reconstruction. There was only one surgeon in the region certified for this procedure. Dr. West already knew. She looked at the nurse beside her. "Get Langston on the phone, right now. Tell him it is not just about Dr. Calvin Brooks anymore." She paused. "Tell him the chief of police's wife is going to die in this ER if we do not get our surgeon back." The clock on the wall showed evening. Margaret Whitaker had little time left, and the only man who could save her was sitting on a metal bench in a holding cell, staring at a wall, listening to the echo of a man who had just told him he did not belong. "Nah. Wait. Wait. Are you seeing this? This man is in a cell, still in his scrubs, locked up. Meanwhile, the guy who put him there, his wife is dying, and the only doctor who can actually save her? Yeah, it is the same man he just called a thief." Like what? You really cannot make this up. The black Mercedes pulled into the Willow Creek Police Station parking lot. It did not park in a visitor space. It parked directly in front of the main entrance, sideways, like a statement. Victor Langston III stepped out, navy blazer over a white polo, silver hair combed back. No rush in his step, no panic on his face, just the quiet, terrifying calm of a man whose family name is carved into the front of a hospital. He walked through the front doors like he owned them. In a way, he owned half the county. The desk officer looked up, recognized him instantly, sat up straighter. "Mr. Langston, what can I get me, Chief Whitaker? Now." The desk officer picked up the phone. His hand was shaking slightly. Within moments, Whitaker emerged from the back hallway. He was still holding his coffee, still wearing that same self-satisfied expression, but it flickered when he saw who was standing in his lobby. "Jim." Whitaker extended his hand. "What brings you down here at this hour?" Langston did not take the hand, did not even look at it. "You are holding Dr. Calvin Brooks in your facility." Whitaker's smile thinned. "We have got a suspect by that name." "Yeah. Routine stop, Suspicious behavior. Suspicious behavior. Langston repeated the words like he was tasting something rotten. What behavior specifically? He was driving a vehicle that did not match his. Did not match his… What, Raymond? His skin color? The lobby went quiet. The desk officer stared at his keyboard. Fletcher, who had been leaning against the door frame in the back, straightened up. Whitaker's jaw tightened. Now, hold on. We followed standard procedure. Standard procedure. Langston took one step closer. His voice did not rise. It dropped, which was worse. Let me tell you what your standard procedure has done tonight. He paused. Let the silence build. While you have been down here playing cowboy with my chief of surgery, a man who has saved more lives in this county than you have protected, your wife was brought into my emergency room. Whitaker blinked. Margaret collapsed at a restaurant some time ago. Acute aortic dissection. Her valve is torn. She is on life support right now. My ER team has stabilized her, but she needs emergency cardiothoracic surgery within the hour. Whitaker's coffee cup tilted in his hand. A thin stream of brown liquid spilled onto the tile floor. He did not notice. And the only surgeon within 100 miles who is certified to perform that operation, the only person who can keep your wife alive tonight, is the man you have locked in a cage right now, in his scrubs, because he was driving home. The color drained from Whitaker's face, not slowly, all at once, like someone had pulled a plug. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. That cannot? It is. Call your hospital if you do not believe me. Ask for the ER. Ask them who they have been trying to reach. Whitaker looked at Fletcher. Fletcher looked at the floor. Whitaker set his coffee cup on the desk, missed the edge. It fell to the floor and shattered. He did not react. He was already moving down the hallway. His boots, the same boots that had crunched gravel around Dr. Calvin Brooks, now sounded different, faster, desperate. The echo of authority replaced by the echo of panic. He reached the holding cell. His hands fumbled with the keys. Metal scraped against metal. The lock clicked open. Dr. Calvin Brooks was sitting exactly where Whitaker had left him, hands on his knees, spine straight, eyes forward. He had not moved an inch. Whitaker pulled the door open, stood there, breathing hard. His mouth was working, but producing nothing useful. Dr. Calvin Brooks looked at him slowly, the same way he had looked at him through those bars. Except now, everything was different. Now, Whitaker needed him. Dr. Calvin Brooks stood, straightened his scrubs, walked out of the cell, past Whitaker without a word, without a glance, the way you would walk past a piece of furniture. Whitaker followed behind him like a shadow, smaller now, shrinking with every step. In the lobby, Langston was waiting. He handed Dr. Calvin Brooks a set of car keys. I will drive. The OR team is prepping now. Dr. Calvin Brooks nodded, took the keys, headed for the door. Behind them, Whitaker's voice cracked the silence, thin, broken. Doctor? Dr. Calvin Brooks stopped. He did not turn around. Is she going to? Dr. Calvin Brooks stood still for seconds, the longest seconds of Raymond Whitaker's life. Then he said, quietly, I will do everything I can. He walked out. The glass doors closed behind him. Langston opened the passenger door of the Mercedes. As Dr. Calvin Brooks got in, Langston looked at him. You do not owe him a thing. You know that. Dr. Calvin Brooks stared straight ahead. The hospital was some distance away. Margaret Whitaker had little time left. I am not doing this for him. The engine started. The car pulled out of the lot. I am doing this because a woman is dying, and I am a doctor. That is what I do. The Mercedes disappeared down Oak Ridge Road, the same road where some time earlier, a man in scrubs had been forced to his knees on cold asphalt. The same road, a completely different world. The Mercedes pulled into the hospital parking lot. Dr. Calvin Brooks was out of the car before it fully stopped. He pushed through the ER entrance. The automatic doors were not fast enough. He squeezed through the gap sideways, already moving at a half run. The surgical team was waiting. 2 nurses, an anesthesiologist, a perfusionist standing beside the heart-lung bypass machine. They had prepped operating room 1, the big one, the one reserved for cases where the margin between life and death is measured in heartbeats. Dr. West met him in the hallway. She was walking fast, clipboard in hand, face tight. She is crashing again. We have got little time before the dissection becomes irreversible. Dr. Calvin Brooks did not slow down. Blood type? O. Positive. 6 units standing by. Imaging? C. T. Angio, on the screen in OR1. The tear is in the ascending aorta, root involvement. It is bad. Okay. Dr. Calvin Brooks pushed open the scrub room door. Get her to bypass the second I walk in. He stood at the sink, turned on the water. The soap foamed over the same hands that had been pressed against the cold hood of a police cruiser, the same fingers that had been rolled in black ink at a booking station. He scrubbed for exactly the usual time, the way he always does. No more, no less. Then, he walked into OR1. Margaret Whitaker lay on the table. Her chest was already open. The anesthesiologist had her under. The monitors beeped in a rhythm that was too fast and too irregular. The bypass machine hummed beside her, ready to take over the job her heart could no longer do. Dr. Calvin Brooks looked at the CT scan on the wall-mounted screen. The tear was severe. The aortic root was swollen to nearly twice its normal size. One wrong move, 1 millimeter off, and the entire vessel would rupture. He took a breath, pulled on his gloves, adjusted his headlamp. All right, let us go. For the next hours, Dr. Calvin Brooks did what he was born to do. He worked in silence, precise, methodical. His hands moved the way a concert pianist's move. Muscle memory and instinct merged into something almost spiritual. He sutured. He grafted. He reinforced the torn aortic wall with a synthetic patch so delicate that a single tremor would destroy it. The room was silent, except for the monitors and the soft hiss of suction. Nobody spoke, unless Dr. Calvin Brooks spoke first. The nurses anticipated his movements. Instruments appeared in his hand before he asked for them. At the end, Dr. Calvin Brooks placed the final suture, stepped back, watched the monitor. The heart rhythm steadied, strong, regular, alive. She is stable, he said. Let us close. He pulled off his gloves, dropped them in the bin, walked out of the operating room without ceremony. In the waiting room, Chief Raymond Whitaker sat in a plastic chair, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. His uniform was wrinkled. His eyes were red. Officers Fletcher and Moore sat on either side of him. Nobody was talking. Dr. Calvin Brooks appeared in the doorway, still in his scrubs, sweat stains visible at the collar. His face showed nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just exhaustion. Whitaker stood up. His legs were unsteady. Your wife is stable, Dr. Calvin Brooks said. The surgery was successful. She will need weeks of recovery, but she is going to live. Whitaker exhaled, a long, shuddering breath that seemed to empty his entire body. His eyes watered. His lips trembled. Doctor, I thank you. I do not know how to do not. The word stopped Whitaker mid-sentence. Dr. Calvin Brooks's voice stayed level, quiet, but every syllable carried weight. Some time ago, you put me on my knees on a public road. You called me a thief. You told me I do not belong here. You locked me in a cage and told me to go back where I came from. Whitaker's mouth hung open. No sound came out. You may want to call your attorney before you say anything else to me. Dr. Calvin Brooks turned and walked down the hallway. His footsteps echoed against the polished floor. He did not look back. Whitaker stood there, frozen, staring at the empty hallway, like a man watching his entire life collapse in slow motion. Behind him, Officer Tanya Moore stood up quietly. She excused herself, walked to the hospital administration desk. I need to speak with someone in charge, she said. I have body cam footage that needs to be preserved. She reached up and unclipped the small black camera from her chest. All of it. The first domino fell the next morning. The college kid's cell phone video, the one he posted with the caption, "They just arrested a doctor for nothing," had been live for hours. It already had thousands of views. By sunrise, it crossed more. The video was grainy, shaky, shot from across the street, but it was clear enough. A black man in surgical scrubs, hands on the hood, two officers standing over him, red and blue lights flashing. And then the handcuffs. Local news picked it up first. Channel 4 Willow Creek ran it during their morning broadcast with the headline, "Local surgeon detained during routine traffic stop. No charges filed." Before long, it was not local anymore. Attorney Denise Collins saw the video early. She was eating breakfast in her kitchen when her phone buzzed with a link from a colleague. She watched it once, watched it again, set down her coffee, and called her office. "Cancel everything today. I am taking a case." Before long, Collins had filed a public records request for all body cam footage from the traffic stop on Oak Ridge Road. Before long, she had it. Officer Tanya Moore's body cam footage was long, unedited, uninterrupted, and it was devastating. It captured everything the cell phone video missed: the close-up audio of Whitaker's voice, the sneer when he flicked Dr. Calvin Brooks's hospital lanyard off his neck, the moment he called surgical instruments burglary tools, the casual cruelty in his voice when he said, "I have been cleaning trash off these streets for years." But the body cam was only the second worst piece of evidence. The worst was the holding cell footage. The security camera in the hallway outside Dr. Calvin Brooks's cell had recorded minutes of Chief Raymond Whitaker standing at the bars delivering what could only be described as a monologue of pure contempt. Every word, every pause, every smirk. "People like you. You do not belong here. Go back to wherever you came from." All of it, in high definition with audio. Collins held a press conference that afternoon. She stood on the steps of the county courthouse. Microphones bristled in front of her like a steel garden. She played seconds of the body cam footage, then seconds of the holding cell footage. She did not need to say much after that. Dr. Calvin Brooks is a chief of surgery who has saved hundreds of lives in this community. Some time ago, he was arrested without cause, searched without a warrant, and subjected to racial abuse by the chief of police. And then, while still in custody, he was released only because the chief's own wife needed his hands to survive. Let that sink in. The clip went national within the hour. CNN, MSNBC, Fox, ABC. Every network ran it. The headline wrote itself across every screen in America. Police chief arrests black surgeon, then begs him to save his wife. Social media did not just pick it up, it detonated. The body cam clip hit millions of views. The hashtag trended for days, even though Dr. Calvin Brooks had already been released. It did not matter. The hashtag was not about his freedom. It was about everything the arrest represented. Willow Creek, a town most Americans had never heard of, was now the most talked about place in the country. And the political ground beneath Raymond Whitaker began to crack. Mayor Brenda Sullivan had released a statement that morning. It read, "We support our law enforcement officers and trust in the department's internal review process." Later that day, after the press conference, after the footage, after Congresspeople called for an investigation, Sullivan released a second statement. "I am calling for an immediate independent investigation into the conduct of the Willow Creek Police Department." The county sheriff's office took over the investigation. Within a week, the state attorney general opened a parallel civil rights inquiry. What they found buried the department. Multiple traffic stops involving black drivers in the past year. Not one resulted in charges. Every single stop was initiated by either Whitaker or Fletcher. Probable cause documentation was missing in all cases. In some of them, There was no documentation at all. Internal emails surfaced during the investigation. Whitaker had sent a message to his officers sometime earlier with the subject line, "Neighborhood Awareness." The body of the email instructed patrol units to maintain heightened vigilance regarding new residents who do not fit the established community profile. The prosecutors did not need a translator for that. The federal grand jury indicted Raymond Whitaker on counts: false imprisonment, violation of civil rights under federal statute, and abuse of authority. The trial lasted days. The jury deliberated quickly. Guilty. All counts. Whitaker was sentenced to months in federal prison, banned from law enforcement for life. His pension was revoked. He stood in the courtroom when the verdict was read. His face was gray. His hands trembled at his sides. He looked like a man who had aged years. Officer Ryan Fletcher was terminated and charged as an accomplice. He received months suspended with mandatory retraining. Collins publicly called the sentence a slap on a wrist that deserved a hammer. Most people agreed. But the legal reckoning did not stop there. Collins filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against Willow Creek County on Dr. Calvin Brooks's behalf. The county fought it for days before their attorneys advised settlement. The number was millions. Dr. Calvin Brooks accepted the settlement, then held his own press conference. It was short. He stood behind a podium in a Navy suit. No notes, no anger, just clarity. "I am donating the full amount to establish the Brooks Justice Initiative, a legal defense fund for victims of racial profiling who cannot afford an attorney. Because what happened to me happens every day to people who do not have a hospital board chairman to come get them out." He stepped away from the podium, did not take questions. Officer Tanya Moore, the quiet one, the one who stood by her cruiser and watched, the one who handed over her body cam and filed the first complaint. She was promoted to lieutenant. Sometime later, she transferred to the State Police Academy. She now teaches a mandatory course to every incoming cadet. The course is called Protect and Serve, and what those words actually mean. Sometime later, Willow Creek looked different. Not the lawns, not the oak trees, not the freshly painted fences or the neighborhood watch signs. Those were all still there. What changed was underneath. The Willow Creek Police Department had a new chief, the first one hired from outside the county in its entire history. A civilian oversight board now reviewed every use of force report, every traffic stop, every complaint. The board met monthly in the community center on Oak Ridge Road, the same road where Dr. Calvin Brooks had been forced to his knees. The meetings were open to the public. People actually showed up. Dr. Calvin Brooks still drives that same dark blue Chevy Tahoe, still plays classical music on the way home, still keeps his hospital lanyard hanging from the rearview mirror. He never replaced the one Whitaker flicked off his neck that night. He got a new one. It hangs in the same spot. He still drives the speed limit on Oak Ridge Road. 33 in a 35. Some habits do not change. Some habits should not have to exist. But other things did change. Dr. Calvin Brooks now sits on the county's Civilian Oversight Board. He was asked. He accepted. Not because he wanted to relive what happened, because he wanted to make sure it did not happen to someone else. He also speaks at medical schools across the South, not about surgery, about the intersection of race and service, about what it means to take an oath to save every life, even the life connected to the man who tried to break yours. His daughter asked him once over dinner, "Dad, do you regret moving to Willow Creek?" He thought about it for a long time, longer than she expected. "No," he said, "because if I leave, they win. And I did not survive what I survived just to let somebody else decide where I belong." Margaret Whitaker made a full recovery. Weeks of rehabilitation, months of cardiac therapy. She sent Dr. Calvin Brooks a handwritten letter. 3 pages. The contents have never been made public. Dr. Calvin Brooks has never spoken about it, Neither has she. Neither. They have never been in the same room since the night of the surgery. Raymond Whitaker served his sentence at a federal facility in another state. Upon release, he moved. Nobody in Willow Creek knows where. Nobody in Willow Creek asks. His name has become the kind of name people use as a cautionary tale, spoken in training rooms and courtrooms, never in admiration. Officer Ryan Fletcher completed his sentence and left law enforcement entirely. Last anyone heard, he was working at a supply warehouse 2 states away. He has made no public statements. Officer Tanya Moore, Lieutenant Moore now, stands in front of a classroom of new cadets every Monday morning. She starts each session the same way. She plays the first seconds of her own body cam footage from that night. The room always goes silent. Then, she asks one question. What would you have done? Most cadets do not answer right away. That silence, she says, is the whole point. Victor Langston III pushed the hospital board to establish a permanent diversity and equity initiative. It carries Dr. Calvin Brooks's name. The Brooks Fellowship funds underrepresented medical students every year. Full ride, no exceptions. The Brooks Justice Initiative, funded by the Full Settlement, has taken on cases in its first period. Many resulted in settlements or policy changes. Others are still pending. Dr. Calvin Brooks does not run it. He did not want to. He wanted it to be bigger than him. He wanted it to outlast him. It will. Look, yeah, the story is made up. But that feeling, though, when someone looks at you and already decided you are nothing before you even say a word, yeah, that is real. That is like a normal day for a lot of people. And I'm not going to lie, every time I think about that, yeah, that one messes with me. So let me ask you something, and I mean this for real. If you were Dr. Calvin Brooks, if you were the one in that cell, in your scrubs, hands still smelling like ink from a booking station, would you have walked into that operating room and saved her life? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know. And if this story hit you, if it made you feel something, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you have not. Turn on notifications, because we have got more stories like this coming. Justice does not always come fast, but when good people refuse to break, it comes. See you in the next one.